Deng suffers enormously during the Cultural Revolution, as does his family. He comes back to power as vice premier, as I recall, in 1973, then begins to lead an effort really dating back to the efforts of 1956, now called the Four Modernizations in 1975.
Right.
But he's coming, and he's, in some sense, he's inheriting a government, and to some degree, he's inheriting a party that are really on the ropes after the disasters of the Cultural Revolution. What's he thinking at that point?
He wants to overcome the polarization between the people who were criticized of the Cultural Revolution. Some of them, friends were killed, some of the families were destroyed, between those people and the people who attacked them. And it was worse than the Civil War because they had to go back to the same units all over the country. People who had fought each other, struggled against each other, sometimes killed, lamed, sent to years in the countryside without enough food. Over 1 million people died in the Cultural Revolution, and that was a disaster. Mao in 1975 was already giving Deng a little rope to begin to modernize. I think perhaps Mao, even at the end, realized that he had gone too far and they could end up in chaos, and he wanted to get things back on track. So Deng had a chance in 1975. Already a number of officials who had been criticized during the Cultural Revolution, who had been in office before, were beginning to come back. And Deng could use them to begin to get an economic program. And of all the economic programs, Deng considered science, technology, education the most important. There were 4 modernizations, as you know, in industry, agriculture, national defense, science, technology, education. He considered science, technology, education the most important. And he pushed very hard to get the National Academy of Sciences back in operation. The universities had been closed down. He tried very hard to get them started. He couldn't get them full started in 1975. He didn't have the leisure. But he was beginning to do that. And in the end of 75, Mao decided that Deng was not revolutionary enough. He would not continue the legacy. In early 76, he got rid of Deng again. So what you have then is Deng going back to being criticized, out of office for another year. It's very interesting to me that a lot of the great leaders of the world, like de Gaulle, Churchill, Abraham Lincoln, had been in high positions, lost out, then had time in the countryside to think about what they were doing. And Deng's period in the countryside, from 1969 to 1973, 3.5 years, gave him lots of opportunity to think. His daughter wrote that every day he would pace the garden, thinking about what he would do if he came back to Beijing. And so when he came back in 73, he already had a vision of the direction he wanted to go and a lot of ideas about how to carry it out.
But he gets purged again, gets saved in part by allies in the People's Liberation Army, and by the December of 1978, he's back, nominally not the chief, but in fact the #1 power in China. What does he do then?